introduction from Greg to Leslie for us, and then we'll do some Rotary business after hearing her presentation.
So good afternoon, everyone. This is Leslie Berry I'm introducing. She's in the cell to my right. I don't know where she is on your screen. I have never met actually Leslie in person, but I grew up down in the Belvedere and Tiburon area in the Bay Area, where my parents still live, and so I get a copy of the local newspaper there. And there was an article about her new book, which she's going to tell us about. Sounded fascinating, both the story behind it and the book that she's written. And so I contacted her and asked her if she'd be willing to speak to our club, and she consented to do that. So I will count on her to provide any further background. And Leslie, take it away.
Well, thank you, Greg, and thank you for reaching out. It's a real privilege. I think, let me see if this is accurate. I think you are my first California group that I've been speaking to. It's been quite an adventure launching a book in a pandemic, and just a quick summary of the process, the adventure I've been through doing this. I think it was in April, my publisher called. I wasn't supposed to launch this book till December. In April, he called and he said, hey, because of the pandemic and the shut-in, would you like to go ahead and launch your ebook? I said, sure, why not? I had no idea what I was doing or what I was agreeing to. But I launched the ebook back in April. And then actually, I was just telling Greg, I just launched the paperback this week. But the point of that story is I was so overwhelmed about how to launch this. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start where the book takes place in Newark, New Jersey. And I started reaching out. And at that time, nobody barely knew Zoom. I mean, some of my first Zoom things, we're all like talking over each other and everything. So I started building this following in Newark and then New York and in Florida. And so I hadn't really focused on California. And so you guys are my first California Zoom book talk. So very honored to be here. As Greg said, I live down in Tiburon now, but I come from the East Coast. And I grew up in Maryland, but my mom grew up in Newark, New Jersey. And she's still going strong. She's 95 years old. She came from an immigrant family, a Jewish family that escaped from Russia early 1900s. She had 4 older brothers, and they all lived in the melting pot of our country at the time. And growing up, my sisters and I heard all these stories from her and my uncles and cousins about the horrible times, of course, the depression and the war and the pandemics back then and all of that. And we never really listened that closely to all those stories. But there was one that at her 90th birthday that we all celebrated, that we all zeroed in again and said, wait a minute, we kind of remember you telling that story. And it was about her older brother, Harry, my uncle, who was a Jewish boxer at the time, back in the 30s. And he was a Golden Glove champion. There's a newspaper about him and everything. And we'd all seen that article growing up. But what they all started talking about, my mom and her cousins, was about how Harry used to go out and punch the Nazis. And we were like, well, what we mean over in Germany, right? During the war. They're like, no, no, no. During the Depression in Newark, New Jersey, there was a group they called them the Newark Minutemen, because there were a bunch of boxers that at a minute's notice, they could be rounded up and called out and go put down what was a Nazi party that was being created in our country. And I had never really zeroed in or heard about this story. And what I want to do, because I think it's great it's this video that I saw that compelled me to gather this family story together. And so I sometimes wait for this video, but I think I want to jump in to set the stage for what was going on at the time. And this is all true footage that you're going to see. So this was chilling to me, and I'm going to jump right into it. Where's my share screen? Okay. Whoops. Sorry. Okay, so this is my, everybody got that? This is just my website. We can look at these pictures later, but I'm going to jump down to the video. Okay, so this takes place before World War II, Madison Square Garden, New York, 1939, 6 months before Hitler even invaded Poland.
February 20th, 1939. Just months before Hitler invades Poland and ignites the deadliest war in history, thousands of Nazis gather for a rally at an indoor arena. But this isn't Nuremberg or Berlin. This is Madison Square Garden in New York City.
You all have heard of me through the Jewish-controlled press.
And the man speaking isn't a member of Adolf Hitler's inner circle. He's Fritz Julius Kuhn, a U.S. citizen and head of the German-American Bund, or Association.
Kuhn wanted a rally to celebrate George Washington's birthday. The first American fascist is what they called him. They signed a contract with Madison Square Garden. Said, okay, we agree. No swastikas, no anti-Semitic signs, none of that stuff. Of course, once the contracts were signed, those agreements went out the window.
This program was produced for the German-American Bund rally.
We love him for the enemies he has made. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Fritz Kuhn.
Kuhn then went on to deliver a very, very predictable and very, very typical National Socialist stump speech about racism and the Jewish conspiracy and the communists and how everybody's an enemy and everybody has to be alike.
We, the German-American Bund, organized as American citizens with American ideals and determined to protest ourselves, our homes, our wives and children against the slimy conspirators and the parasite hands of Jewish communism in our schools, our universities, our very homes.
Then, an unemployed plumber tries to silence the American Fuhrer.
That's terrifying.
It is.
So just to give you first the setting of what was going on in the country, there was, it started, well, it started in the 20s, but really in 1933, when Hitler was elected, it was sort of a triple bewitching hour. So you have Hitler being elected, you have our prohibition ending, and you have our depression, taking off. And there was an effort, and it was sort of a Hitler satellite. The America at the time was considered a Hitler satellite by the Reich over there, and they actually called us a colony. They called us the American colony, and they started building this party it was nationwide. They divided our country into three, and it was organized with this hierarchy, just like in Germany. There was an American Hitler at the top, the guy that you just saw, Fritz Kuhn, and he had his members, and then there were tens of thousands of cells around the country. They used our NRA to get free guns and to train. They they turned themselves into Fritz Kuhn did two really brilliant things. The first thing he did was, under the guise of Americanism, he created this extreme idealism that mirrored what was going on in Germany. And so, he said we're the higher race, we were taken advantage of, and we're gonna turn this back into America. And by the way, make America great. Mm-hmm. That was a quote he used. My nephew asked me, he goes, why did you steal that quote from Trump? I said, no. Anyway, The second brilliant thing he did was he turned this organization into a corporation. And it was, he had 6 companies under his corporation and became a profit corporation. And under one section, he had a newspaper. Under another section, he had his army that he was building. He actually had a group called the ODs. It was a German term, but it was like their SS. And he trained these guys to guard him and to be ready for the day, they called it, der Tag. And then one of the other groups he created was he bought all this land across America in these different towns, and he created these Hitler youth camps and sent German American children, used the trained them in the ideologies that were going on. They all wore uniforms. They all spoke German. In fact, the one in New York, it was in Long Island. It came out later in the FBI documents that they had been raping the young girls in order to increase the Aryan population in America. That was their goal. So anyway, this is the setting that was going on, again, during the 30s. Remember, before World War II even happened, during our Great Depression. And there was, so it's interesting. One of the lessons I learned about the mafia back then was that in 1929, we know what happened. There was a crash, and the people that really had the money and the power were the mafia because of bootlegging. Well, what happened was, because of First Amendment rights, the government couldn't do anything about this rising party. So they went to the Jewish mafia. They went to Meyer Lansky, actually, who was the head of the Jewish mafia. And they said, look, we need your help. We'll pay you to put this party down, to disrupt them. We need your help going undercover to help us get information. And Meyer Lansky said, you don't need to pay me, you just look the other way. And he started a whole effort in New York that got a little bit out of hand. He got together a bunch of young guys, and then they had some bad press. So what he did was he went to his guy in New Jersey, whose name was Longy Zwillman. And Longy was the very powerful young guy. They called him the Gatsby of gangsters. He was very likable. My mom growing up knew him. She said they called him Robin Hood because he helped the neighborhood. And so they went to Longy's woman and they said, look, Longy, you have all these boxers, because the mob, had all the gambling going on. So they had all these boxers. Can you organize a group for us in an organized manner that when we need you, we can come to you and say, okay, deploy 100 guys, deploy 1,000 guys. So he had this group trained called the Newark Minutemen, and that was, my uncle was one of them, that would go out, stop as sort of a resistance group, stop these German American protests that were going on, go undercover, and these guys helped to sort of thwart this party. So what I did was I took that whole setting, kind of like Titanic, and that's my whole backdrop of my story. And then I have these 2 characters, Yael and Krista. And Yael is a Jewish boxer, and Krista is the daughter of the German American Bund. So it's a star-crossed, they fall in love, star-crossed love affair. That's obviously very complicated and a lot of conflict. And so you have them falling in love. You have Yael fighting the German American Bund with the goal of bringing down the American Hitler. He ends up going undercover for the FBI to help do this, and then help rescue Krista from one of the German American camps. Whether she wants to come with him is another story, because obviously this is her family and her people, and that becomes very complicated as well. So, so, you know, you've got mafia and Nazis and boxers and, you know, all the elements of a blockbuster movie, which I actually sold the rights to the movie and just released the book. It just came out, the paperback just came out on Tuesday. And it's being, I couldn't ask for more in terms of how it's being received. And obviously there's some relevance to some of this going on today as well. Some of these themes never go away, unfortunately. But so that's the story, and I'd love to, I'm so happy to share it with you, and I'd love to get any of your questions about my research or the characters or my family or whatever.
Well, thank you, Leslie. I would like to ask, who are the two main characters based on?
Great question. They're based on, so Yael is based on in 1936. When I started researching this, I became possessed, and I started going through all these thousands of FBI documents that, by the way, had just been released 8 years ago. And I started doing research on ancestry. And I found this, there were two brothers in 1936, John and Jim Metcalf. And John worked for the Chicago Daily News and Jim worked for the FBI. And they came up with this scheme with their editor to go undercover with the Bund and then write a story. And so they went undercover for 6 months and then wrote this 14-day story that started revealing all these activities. And I came across this story and I looked them up, the brothers up on Ancestry, and in little mice type at one of the bottom, it said that John's diaries were at Hoover Institute over at Stanford. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. I really didn't understand what, I had never really experienced those archives before, but I became a member, I went down, and there were literally 12 boxes of his handwritten diaries explaining unbelievable detail. And I contacted his son, and who's 80 now, we're like best friends, and he's like, use it, use all that stuff, I would love you to. And so there's an initiation scene, for instance, where Yael's being initiated into the SS, and it's the whole how they stand and how they move and all the everything. And I've used all those details to make it sort of as rich historically and accurately as possible, and used a lot of the other information as well. So that's Yael is really he's a couple characters, but that's the main character that he's based on. The girl is based on a girl named Helen Vrurus, who was one of the girls at the camp that was raped, and that she testified in FBI and other Senate hearings about that. That's all documented. And there's also I found this in the archives actually because I couldn't find it anywhere else, but there's an article in this newspaper, and it reminds me a little bit of an Inquirer type newspaper, but knowing that I have the facts too, a lot of it's real, but it's dramatized, and it's her whole story about how these officers abused her and got the other boys to abuse other girls in the camp. So those are my two main characters. And then my Uncle Harry is Yael's buddy. So that's kind of real. And then I try to bring in my family as some of the characters. And then most of the other characters are real. Fritz Kuhn's real, Longy's Woman is real. And the way I did the book, actually, it's 4 narrators. So it's Yael, Krista, Longy, and Fritz Kuhn. And people kept telling me, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And I was so intent on, I wanted both perspectives to be seen. And I wanted somebody to be, we know the punchline in the end, so we know who we're rooting for. But, Longy's Woman's a gangster. Fritz Kuhn is the American Hitler. They're both bad guys. But I wanted empathy on both sides, and I wanted you to be able to see. And in fact, I was talking to the son of a gangster last night. All these people have contacted me, but he's like, you know what? We meaning the old gangster guys, we really love your book because these old stories are told over and over and over again. And you've personalized Longy. You've made him a person. And, you know, a lot of it's through anecdotes or my own imagination, but I'm very happy that I hopefully people think it works, but I'm really happy that I approached the book that way.
Leslie, we missed the beginning. What was the name of your book again?
Oh, well, I'll be commercial. Newark Minutemen.
North Minutemen.
Newark.
Newark.
Newark, New Jersey, Minutemen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that's an okay name.
Hey, Leslie, of course it's an okay name. So that video you showed in the beginning was frightening.
Chilling.
Yeah, really. And had the narrator not said, you know, this is Madison Square Garden, I would have thought of course it was in Germany. So how did a small group, apparently very small group of boxers, overcome such a massive and building swell of force there?
Well, so a great question. So back then, New York too, but Newark, I discovered, was this incredible melting pot of, I guess it was the overflow from New York, right? Of all these different ethnic groups, right? Italians, Jews, Germans, Poles, Russians. And the biggest efforts and the biggest, plans, that's where it all came in. In fact, this was shocking to me. Fritz Kuhn, my mom grew up on, there were two streets she grew up on, but one of them was Nye Avenue. And I started researching, and it was incredible that Fritz Kuhn had a New Jersey office on Nye Avenue. She didn't, I mean, nobody knew that, but we were able to find that. So I think part of the answer is that was where the ground zero was. New York too, but Newark was this crossroads, this melting pot, and this stuff went on in other cities too. I mean, there's a book coming out about Hollywood. So San Francisco had its own group, LA had its own group, but I think the biggest efforts were there. In fact, there were 3 camps in New Jersey, a couple in New York, and to directly answer your question, though, I mean, a lot of the stuff isn't published. You really have to dig or hear anecdotes. But so what they would do is when they called the Newark Minutemen, they would give them $100. And back then, that was a lot of money. You had hundreds and hundreds of guys if needed. I mean, if you can go online and look more at that Madison Square Garden event. 200,000 people showed up. And so part of it was a build. You know, they would go and put down different events, and it all built to that one event. And I think it backfired on Fritz Kuhn because when you have 200,000 people coming to protest your event, it puts you on the map. And then it all tumbled for him, and he ended up actually going to jail for tax evasion, and that was some of the efforts of the undercover things. But
There were a lot of famous people in the Bund as well. The Lindberghs famously were in the Bund, as were a lot of the social elite in the United States, who were aligned with pieces of this story, and that actually showed to be, you know, there was no there. It was all hat, no cattle, as we say in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, you're totally right. And one of the big questions back then was the Bund tied to Hitler or not? And I ended up doing a lot of research. My conclusion is yes. And one of the most compelling research I did was this guy he was a social studies teacher. And in the 1970s, he found out about these camps that had happened, and he quit his job and he went around and he interviewed all the kids who had been at the camp. And one of the big things he found out was that it was the president of Chase Bank and another president of a huge bank. He followed the money trail. And it was at that level of people in America that were sending money back to Germany through some of these organizations. So yeah, and there's a book and a TV series. I don't know if any of you all saw Plot Against America. That's sort of I always say mine is the prequel to that, but that takes place in 1940. And that's an alternative history novel where Lindbergh, as you say, Robert, he becomes president versus Roosevelt. And yeah, we were so close. We were really, really close.
Hey, Leslie, my name's Cindy. It's nice to meet you.
You too.
I read your book. I really enjoyed the 4-character perspective. It was phenomenal. So Harry in your story is actually your great-great-grandfather, correct?
He's my uncle.
Your uncle.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up with him. I knew him.
Okay. Was his role pretty accurate within your book as being so close to this combined character, Yael, and going in, and I don't know if he was the one that was shot. I can't remember because all those characters.
Yeah, I mean, some of them, and my mom, we won't give the end away, but my mom got really mad at me for the ending because that part's not true, but we won't give it away to everybody else. But you know, Yael is made up. So I would say that was Harry's life. I don't know if he actually went undercover. They all kind of helped out. I mean, I can tell you that they lived right across from the candy store. If you ever hear the term candy store, what it really means is in the back, that's where all the mafia used to meet and play cards and do their stuff. So he was involved in that life, and my mom's brothers were as well. A lot of what they did as young boys was run the numbers or box and that kind of stuff. And the barber in the story was my mom's cousin. He used to cut Longy's hair, and his son is still living. And he said he remembers as a little boy, all the mafia coming over and playing with him. And so I think the answer to your question is that was his life, but because Yael and Krista are made up, the interaction with those literal characters was not true. That was fictionalized.
Thank you.
Yeah, but Cindy,
really
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wow, somebody read it.
I will when it gets here. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's been amazing. My publisher is so happy. They gave me some numbers. They're like, you're on your way. So it's good. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'll look for a signature inside my book when I
totally
make my way down there.
Yeah, I'll drop some off for your parents if you want to.
I did the Kindle, so.
Kindle, okay.
I thought about it, but I thought I want her to sign it, and she can't sign the Kindle.
Maybe I can get a signed copy too.
Definitely, any of you. And if you want to be in the movie, let me know. And I did this one for it was a Jewish congregation, and the rabbi, he's so funny. He texts me. He goes, "If you need a rabbi, remember I'm the rabbi for the book or for the movie." Yeah. But had any of you heard any of this before? Any of this kind of, Robert? Yeah.
Not in this country. I mean, I moved here from the UK, and it's just so alien for me, try to comprehend that amount of larger gathering of people.
Yeah.
It just seems.
please feel free to, my website is newarkminutemen.com, and I try to put pictures up there, but they're all so chilling of, the Nazi flag draped over George Washington. And the most chilling ones are the children marching with the flags, swastika American flags side by side. But no, and in fact, Jenny, the production company that's doing the movie, the Fulwell 73, there are 4 guys from the UK, and the 5th partner is James Corden, and that's the US part. But I have had to emphasize with them so much that in America, like you said, in Britain, people expected or whatever, it's part of the memory. Mm-hmm. Because they kept saying, well, that's not really shocking that the Nazis were walking around. I'm like, no, you don't understand. In America, that is so shocking. We just never pictured that. We think that's made up stuff or dystopian stories.
Well, I think we all knew about Lindbergh and his leanings, but it stands to reason that he wasn't the only one.
Right, right.
But we heard about these masses. I mean.
Well, and the thing is how organized it was. I mean, right. I have this one, it's pictures of a book, but the organization is just incredible. I don't even know if our own army has that kind of organization. I mean, just like detail by detail on how you hold your hand and salute and approach and the holidays and
it just go up to Idaho, some of the Midwestern states, down in New Braunfels, Texas, and you'll see there are still families that obviously are not very empathetic to Jews, feel that there is a background in this country that is, not American and controlling everything. It's a dystopian vision that's promoted by parents, and it goes back generations.
Yeah, and it does go beyond Jews too. I mean, the Fritz Kuhn, he very clearly, if you can go find some of this complete footage, the footage I showed you was edited out, but if you Google it, you can actually find hours of this footage. I think Steven Spielberg has it in one of his archives, but he literally said Jews, blacks, homosexuals, cripples. He went through anybody that wasn't, I guess Aryan or however he classified himself.
We have a gentleman in our local community, Leon Malmed, who survived the Holocaust. He lived outside of Paris with his family, and he was 6, I think, when his parents were taken away. And he and his sister survived the war and kind of expected at the end his parents would come back, but they had gone to Auschwitz and they were gone. Wow. And it was only relatively recently, that his wife convinced him he really ought to write a story, write his book. And so he's done that and has since spoken quite frequently. And the parallels that he draws between what's going on today and what was going on back then are terrifying.
Right. I mean, yesterday I just couldn't believe it. Yeah. And the whole parallel even of, I have a publicist and he said, the whole parallel of the guy undercover with the FBI, and so one of the things people ask me this, so I'll jump ahead and say it anyway, because to me it's important. But when I first started doing this book, it was really for my mom. And, every day, I talked to her every single day for like 2 years. She's like, oh my God, I've been, given this new gift of you talking to me again. But as I got deeper into it, I got to this whole thing about complacency, and that it was so clear back then that everybody was so scared to say something because, we don't want to go back to war, or, that's too right, that's too left. And this whole thing about complacency. And I guess one thing I was glad about yesterday was that apparently somebody is watching, because our FBI was undercover and thwarted this whole thing. So that was encouraging, because I always ask myself, do we know what's going on under the, under the dirt here? And there's multiple organizations I've heard of that, you know, don't believe in our system, I guess. So.
Well, Leslie, I first of all, I want to reach out and say thank you to Greg for reaching out to you. And as a result of Greg's due diligence there, we had you come give us the honor of your presence here today and hearing about your book. And not just the book, but the amazing story behind it as well. So thank you so much for your time.
And thank you.
And I also wanted to point out that I wonder if we can share that link, whether Joe can do that or you can do that, Leslie, on our site, because I noticed that we were joined by Paula Peterson today. And first of all, I want to say hi to Paula. She is a former member of our Rotary Club, former past president, but she is also the owner of South Tahoe Now, which is a news media outlet. And I think, you know, knowing Paula, she'd be quite interested in continuing some dialogue with you and running an article on your book.
She had a very nice promo letting the community know that she was going to be with us today. Hi, Paula.
Hi.
There's her hat. That would be fantastic, Paula. Greg, I'll send you some links, and Paula, I would love to follow up with you.
Great. Thank you.
Just so you know, if any of you just want to casually do it, the website is literally newarkminutemen.com. So if anybody wants to, and there's a bunch of stuff on there, and I'm trying, one thing that's kind of fun is all these people are finding me and saying, oh, my uncle was a Newark Minuteman too. So I'm saying, send me pictures. I'm trying to create a whole gallery of these Newark Minutemen and sort of honor them as a group.
And how long, I had one extra question actually when you raised that. How long were they active for?
So 1933 seems to be the key year, because again, that's when all this stuff became really serious, when Hitler became chancellor or whatever he became first. And I created this whole timeline. And so that's when the Newark Minutemen started forming, and then it went all the way up to, it was after that event that you just saw where the Americans really started becoming aware. And, but I think it went up to the war, and then a lot of those boys went off to war, and there's some stories about them afterwards. But then they kind of disappeared in terms of the story. And we've asked why, and it goes everything from, well, none of them are living anymore, to the war kind of upstaged everything. And but I don't know why that whole period isn't taught in school, or we don't know more about it. It's curious to me.
Does somebody on the call have your email so we can exchange some information?
I do, Bob.
Share.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, please share, and I would love, keep in touch with me. I'd love to hear your reviews of the book and what you think, and if you're in Tiburon, stop by. So, but it was such a pleasure to do my California group. So I'm very excited. Thank you.
Well, thank you. The honor is all ours, and we wish you a huge success with the book, and obviously the rights with the movie, having sold that, and look forward to reading that and also seeing it on the big picture at some point in the future. So thank you, and you're more than welcome to stay for a Rotary meeting. It's just general business, but you're more than welcome to continue to stay with, or if not, we'd like
how much longer is it?
I don't know if we had that much business, maybe sort of 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, we're excited about that. So thank you very much. And I don't know if you're familiar with Rotary.
Not really.
Okay, so we are a service club. We serve the local community and also on an international basis. Rotary is, well, actually, I'm going to pass over to our past district governor here, Joe Zarikoff, because he is also past president, but he also has a Rotary Minute. And I don't know if you are including a Rotary Minute, Joe, with anything to do with the foundation.
Actually, I wasn't planning on that, but Rotary, being a worldwide organization, we were in the forefront of the effort to eradicate polio. And we started in the mid-'80s when there were 1,000 cases a day worldwide. And together with our partners, World Health Organization, the CDC, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, and others, we've managed to work our way around the world and bring it back down to where there's only 2 countries that have wild polio virus at this time. So each year we do celebrate our World Polio Day, and that's coming up on October 24th. And that is just right around the corner.
Have you all seen the documentary that was out in April about polio?
Well, there's been many. I don't know which one in particular you were referring to.
I'll send that to you, Greg, too. That was fantastic. It was done at the beginning of the pandemic.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately or fortunately, I've tried to share, a couple of weeks ago, I shared quite a bit of publicity that mentioned Rotary in our efforts. Unfortunately, we haven't done a great job of getting the word out. Certainly our partners in the communities we've helped know of Rotary's contribution in this effort, but we don't get enough general recognition in the press. So I'd love to see which one you were talking about, and hopefully Rotary got a mention in there. So, but that's just one of the things that we do worldwide. Next week, we're going to hear from Ryder Evans, who's on this call. And Ryder, do you want to give us a 20 or 30 second shout out about what Shelterbox does?
Sure. So one of the great things about Rotary, I'm turning my camera here, is that, you know, small clubs can do great things throughout the world. And there was a Rotary club in England who came up with this idea of providing emergency shelter. And so far has basically, you know, after disasters, man-made or natural, and to date has served like 500 million family units with emergency shelters after disasters and things. So it's one of the great things about Rotary is we're able to multiply people's ideas into great projects. There, I could go on for an hour, but I'll leave it.
Another great program of ours that many have participated in is our Rotary Youth Exchange, and this is where we host teenagers from overseas, as well as send them on trips to do a year of school abroad. And I'm bringing that up today because I'm going to contribute $10 in Happy Bucks. We were out shopping yesterday when Cheryl got a text from Gabe Camargo, who was somebody that we had hosted way back in 2007, I guess, from Brazil. And it was a picture of he and his wife and their first newborn baby. And that was quite nice that he included us in the sharing of that moment. And so I'm happy to tell you about the program and share and contribute $10 to Happy Bucks.
So just to explain to you, Leslie, Happy Bucks is normally in place of us being fined. And when we're fined within our service club meetings, it's not for bad things. It's usually to celebrate if somebody bought a new vehicle, or, you know, they've had secured a new work position, a career move. Just good luck and good fortune. And we, you know, they actually pay a fine by a fine master. And that money goes back into the club, and it goes back into either the foundation fund usually, which helps bolster our support for the local community and also on an international basis. So it's a good thing to actually do. You know, we don't resent doing it. We're not being punished. It's joining in the celebration, you know, within our Rotary Club family here. So on that note, I would just like to open it up to all the participants to see if there is any good news you would like to share for a simple donation on a Happy Bucks contribution. Otherwise, if we find out about it later on, you'll be fined much more heavily.
Well, I do. My husband and I just bought a new truck.
Well, congratulations, Cheryl.
Thank you. We've been RVing with our tiny toy hauler where our Harley takes up half the kitchen if we're traveling with it. And it's been kind of hard climbing over it and trying to, live in it when the Harley's in the toy hauler. So we shopped around when we were in Vegas and looked for something else, and we found this beautiful toy hauler. It's much longer and it's got 3 slide outs and it's got its own garage.
Wow.
So, yeah, it'll be much easier to travel in that, but we had to get a diesel truck that can pull the thing. So we had to trade our truck for a little more power. So I'm looking forward to our new comfort and practicality when we travel. So I guess I owe at least 25 Happy Bucks.
I would say that's a lot of happy. There's the trailer, there's the truck, yeah.
It's quite a lot, yeah.
So the garage is, do you mean that in the back of where you put your, gotcha, okay.
Yeah. Separate, it has sliding glass doors. And then, yeah, I know. And then also brings the back down. You have a back out there too.
You're really selling that 25 bucks?
Price is going up.
That's the good thing about Happy Bucks. You get to volunteer and make a contribution. So thank you, Cheryl.
Can I just add that to my 75 I owe for my dues? Can I just send it to y'all?
Just keep rounding up, Cheryl. It all works out in the end.
Yeah. I hope Cheryl can do this. I hope she can just charge my card, but I'll put in 10 Happy Bucks because we finally got a roof on here in Florida.
Wow.
And yeah, so we are cranking right along. The stairway's going in next week. All the windows and doors will be in. I don't know if any of you guys have seen pictures, but it's coming together. It's looking like a fishing shack finally.
That's great.
This is Larry. I want to put in some bucks as well. In a bizarre set of circumstances, my wife is out of town for 4 days, and about an hour ago, my son took his first steps.
Oh.
Did you manage to record it?
So I'm gonna pay you $20, and I'm gonna hope that provides me protection when my wife gets back. Somebody help.
Hopefully you managed to record it, Larry.
That's a negative. I had my hands out. Hands out to catch. We'll get him.
Well,
we'll get him.
Maybe he can first steps in front of your wife when she gets back.
Maybe he was just crawling upright slightly.
That's right. He'll take some
better description. He didn't walk.
But he's very close.
Yeah, well, if it's not on Facebook, it didn't happen. So I guess I can maintain plausible deniability.
Wow, thank you.
Ginny,
Yes.
would you have Cheryl deduct 50 for me for Karnina
completing both her graduate programs this month.
Wow,
Hi.
congratulations. That's great news.
Fabulous.
That's wonderful. She did that in record time, didn't she? Was she due to complete yet?
Well, she was done with one in the spring, and the second one was this fall. So she's done and just has to get her national boards done next. So
perfect. Well, that's a lot to celebrate. So thank you very much for your generosity. That makes a huge difference.
Okay, so let me just recap this. So Cheryl's $25. I'm kicking in 10, Bob Stern 10, Larry 20, and Roberta 50. Is that correct? Did I miss anybody?
And Joe, I can't remember if I tossed this in before or not, but a month ago, I performed my first wedding ceremony. So $50 for my son and $50 for his fiance. I'll throw $100 in the pot.
Wow.
Was that as your judge for a day, or how did that happen?
I was, yeah. It turns out if I'm the judge, I can perform weddings. And so, yeah, so Glasson said, I'm not feeling so well today. I guess you're the judge.
No,
So,
bury your son in.
yeah, so that was neat. You know, it was not a 50 or 60 person thing. It was, 9 people in the audience, but we had the funniest darn thing. I don't know if I have a photo handy, but my father collected photos from all the people who were planning to be there but couldn't, because they were no longer invited, and put all their heads on sticks, and we stuck the sticks in the sand down on the beach. So it was a little creepy, all these heads on sticks, but it was a pretty neat experience for them to walk down and see the pictures of all their friends, and it was neat.
That's so cool.
So how do you rate yourself versus Judge Glasson? I mean, are you the hanging judge compared to him? Are you easier? Who should we try to navigate to if we have an issue to be in the courts? I mean, these are important factors to consider.
They probably are, Joe. I guess all I can say is I'm probably less predictable. There's less history behind me. It would be harder for someone to say, oh, I know how he rules on things like this, because I don't know.
Plan your arrest wisely, Joe.
Maybe don't get caught on that side.
Yeah. Well, before I joined Rotary, I did appear in front of Judge Glasson and actually beat a moving violation. They tried to get me for mountain driving, and I'll share that story another time, but represented myself and presented my case, and Judge Glasson agreed, and later on we had a laugh about that as I joined Rotary and got a chance to meet him. So yeah.
Just remember, most of it is you're driving an urban speed.
Hey, Joe, I just filed my return today and I have $50 left, so I'll give that to the club.
Well, thank you, Bill. Do you have any good news to share with that?
Thanks, Bill.
And just for Leslie, it's not all about giving money. This only happens once in a while.
No, this is fantastic. I mean, I feel like I would love to give books or something, or money either, because I just released my book.
Woo-hoo.
Well, anything you can do would be much appreciated, and we would actually try to, raise some funds to go back into the community with that, if that's something that you would be prepared to share with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or maybe when you get the first check from them, you've only got a promise of good news.
Exactly.
and Leslie, just so you have context, we try to provide the community between $20,000 and $100,000 a year in services, cash, where we help students and families that can't feed themselves, and seniors. We do everything from cleaning up areas of the community to creating pavilions where they can rest, or sports events. We donate money so kids can have areas where they can play sports. So Rotary does all kinds of stuff.
Do all Rotaries do that, or that's your program?
All Rotaries, by and large, are just giving back to the community.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Our motto is service above self.
Uh-huh. Love that.
So I would say, as Rotary clubs go, ours is probably less formal than most. I don't know how the rest of them are adapting to COVID. I remember when I was a little kid that the guys on Friday would walk in with their coats and ties and their canes. They'd walk into the yacht club and have a meeting, and I always thought that doesn't look like very much fun. But this is a totally different perspective on Rotary. I think Rotary in general is a lot more casual than it used to be, but every club is focused on what we can do to better the world.
I have a friend who's the president of her Rotary Club on the North Shore of Hawaii, in Oahu. and they have a large yacht that they take out for their meetings and special occasions. And that sounds like fun to me.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Plus, no one can leave early.
So Cheryl asked me to my Cheryl has just asked me to confirm that has been the recent tradition over the last couple of years. All these fines have been going to Rotary International, to the Rotary Foundation. If anybody object to that, who's made a donation today?
Should I write a check?
Pardon me? No, you don't need to write a check. I just wanted to make sure that where the money was ultimately going. Okay, thank you all for your generosity today. That's awesome.
I have a quick comment. Somebody on the call had a very special day on September 18th. And I apologize, I had to take a phone call, so I muted off. But did that individual get fined today?
That individual made, I'm talking to you from downstairs in the same house, but that individual already made a contribution because Cara completed her study.
Oh, okay. I apologize, I missed that. But the 18th was also a special day for her. And maybe she should get a song or something sang too.
I don't know. I missed the meeting last week, so I apologize if you haven't been recognized for your birthday yet, Roberta. I know that there were 2 other people's birthdays to celebrate this week, and that was Randy Mass and Randy Butler. And unfortunately, neither of them are on the call today. But I don't know if you've been recognized, Roberta, for your birthday.
I would be willing to pay $58 for each year if I got singing.
If you got singing, okay. Then
that's good. So Leslie, I forgot to tell you about this. I apologize. So we often sing to people for their birthdays or their anniversaries, and it's the same song. We just changed the words. But our tradition is that our guests start the singing. And you only have to get one word in and we will join. That's the way we are. All of you guys take your little mute buttons off. So we'll all join in, but it's just a tradition that our guests start whether they are tone deaf or not. We don't care.
Okay. All right. Why not?
And it's happy birthday to Roberta.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Oh, my wild Irish rose is the sweetest that I know. Was Roberta too? Woo, 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 58, 58. Oh, 58. Woo. That was great, Leslie. Thank you. Best we've sung today.
Cindy Gillis also chipped in $50. She says, just because I'm happy to be blessed, blessed to be here with all of you. So thank you, Cindy.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Roberta.
Hey, Roberta.
So does anybody else have any announcements? Oh, and Cam's thrown in 100. Maybe he's become a bell ringer, bull shipper, bell ringer.
That's for something I bought. So
you want to tell us about it, Cam?
Then yeah, you pick $100.
A 40-foot motorhome. So
yeah. So I can.
So they're what? They're probably 15 feet wide. So that's 600 by my calculation.
Cam, did you get kicked out of the house again?
You mean again today?
Hedging his bets.
I didn't hear that, Jenny. What was it?
I said you're hedging your bets because Greg said in case you get
You can't be too safe.
Oh, well, thank you. That's generous. Does that make you a bell ringer, or were you already one this year?
I think that'll make me a bell ringer.
Well, congratulations. We don't have a bell for you to ring, though.
I've got an old one here.
Oh, you got one, Cam? All right.
Well done. Thank you. So Joe, I know I sort of, I got you to speak a little sooner. You were probably prepared. Did you have anything that you wanted to announce today?
Just a couple of quick things. Rotary International is sponsoring a membership seminar and online meeting. Many of you may or may not know that we have a way for visitors to Rotary.org to express interest in joining Rotary. And they have said that over the last few years, since 2016, almost 19,000 visitors to Rotary.org had expressed interest in joining Rotary. So I don't know if our membership chair did get copied on that. So I'm going to send out that link. Did you receive that?
Roxanne's on mute at the moment. I don't know if she
Rox,
was.
did you receive that from RI? It was supposed to go out to membership chairs.
I did get that email.
Okay, great. So, it's open to anybody who wants to learn more about that. And then additionally, I'll be talking more. We have a Rotary, an opportunity this year because of COVID to virtually attend what's called the Rotary Zone Institute. And a Zone Institute is an event where it's basically designed for past, future, and current Rotary leaders, mostly governors, and and emerging leaders. And for over a 3 to 4 day period, they typically have wonderful speakers and a lot of enjoyable, fun activities. And I'm going to be talking more about that, but it's from November 11th to November 14th. And it's an opportunity to hear Rotary leaders. RI President and RI President-elect will be there. There'll be professional speakers speaking. There'll be breakout sessions on various topics about Rotary. There will be meetings of fellowships, which have been mentioned before. And a fellowship, does anybody know what a Rotary fellowship is? Okay, so Rotary Fellowship is just Rotarians getting together with a joint interest that has nothing necessarily to do with Rotary. So there's motorcycle fellowships, there's wine fellowships, beer fellowships, there's dozens of them. And so
Pilots.
yeah, pilots, absolutely. And so there'll be opportunities to join those fellowship breakouts as well. So I'll be sending some information. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but I just wanted to let you know about those two opportunities. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to open it up if anybody else has any announcements they would like to make.
I was just thinking,
Okay.
Jenny, we haven't, I think it's been a month now since we went down and picked up our beach, the Zephyr Shoals. And I haven't heard definitively that we're going to see white stuff on the ground very soon, but it's probably worthwhile getting another 1 or 2 beach pickups in before the snow covers up the area. So I don't have a date in mind. I'll be gone next weekend, I think, so that's not good, but anybody else could do it at any time.
Well, would we be able to sort of plan for something like that in a couple of weeks' time?
Yeah, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, let's look at that, and we can make that announcement, but that gives us plenty of time to make it a fellowship event as well as a service project. So we'd just to explain to to Leslie, like we would do a beach cleanup, but then the incentive, the carrot at the end of the workload would be to maybe have a barbecue and some fellowship afterwards. So we can arrange to do something like that, which would be fun, and to do that before.
Got her little ATV, and now Cheryl's got her truck, so I'm sure we can find a way to get some food down to where we're meeting.
Sounds great. Well, thank you for that. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is that we have board meetings on a regular basis, on a monthly basis here, and even though the board members usually are the people that join that Zoom meeting, we're not doing it in person at the moment, but those board meetings are open to every member within our club. So you're more than welcome to join us. We'll make sure that we send that link out to everybody. But also, even if you don't even want to attend the meeting on Zoom, but if you have a topic that you'd like raised and discussed within, by the board on behalf of the club, then please feel free to sort of pass on any comments, any observations, or anything that you would like discussed at any board meeting that comes up on a monthly basis. So I just wanted to put that out there so people don't think that we're two separate entities. We are one club, and our membership is, involved with, for everybody here. So I just wanted to pass that on.
That's a great point, Jenny. I would just mention that the link is the same credentials that we use for our meetings every week. So there's no special link just for the board meeting. You can just jump on at the appointed time. So, and when is our next board meeting, Jenny?
I believe it's next Tuesday. I stand to be corrected if that's wrong.
I think it's the 20th.
The 20th. Okay.
At
2
6
weeks.
p.m. The
2
20th
weeks.
at 6 p.m.
Okay. When President Paul gets back, I will, ask him to send out that reminder as well with his weekly email. Just so everybody is aware. And, you just because you're not a voting member on the board, it doesn't mean that you can't be represented by a member on the board if you have any issues you'd like to bring to the attention for the club. So with that, I would just like, go ahead, sorry.
Every member should think about a potential, somebody in the community that might have an interest in attending our meetings. I sent out some invitations because of our guest speaker today. So feel free to invite anyone that you know that might have an interest in any meeting that we have.
That's a great point. Thank you, Roxanne. So with that, unless anybody else has got anything they would like to mention, I'd like to thank everybody.
Yeah, Brian's here now, so let's.
Yeah, Brian Williams is here. Time to go. Yeah.
Time to go.
Hey, Leslie, thanks again for joining. And there is a Rotary Club down in Belvedere, Tiburon. So
I just emailed them.
Perfect.
Them. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much. Once you're in one Rotary, are you connected to them all, or are they all quite?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, it's one of the neatest things about Rotary. A number of us could tell you stories about how we've gone to other countries and gone to a Rotary meeting or gotten there and said, we need some help with something. And it's like you've known these people your whole life.
Okay, good.
You're sucked right in. In fact, there's a story that's told, Ryder had to leave, but he was in, was it Thailand? I can't remember. He was out on one of these shelter box deployments and he had a mountain. It was a different one though, I think. He had a mountain of these, they come in plastic bins, all these shelters to assemble for people, but they were all in the port and he needed to get them to somewhere else in the country, and the entire infrastructure was wrecked from a earthquake or flood or something like that. And he was having trouble figuring out how he's going to move this stuff. So he, and the phone system was down, but he was able to get a text out to our president back here. And he said, can you hook me up with somebody? Our president back here was able to get a hold of somebody in the country that was unaffected. And he wrote back and he said, I've got a C-130. I don't know if you know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
Huge cargo airplane. I've got a C-130. Where and when do you need it?
Wow.
I mean, it's that sort of connection that, and Rotary historically is engaged with real leaders in communities. So sometimes governmental leaders, sometimes the industrial leaders and so on. So often when you connect with somebody, you're not just connecting with somebody who's selling hot dogs on the corner, but it's really people who have influence if you need it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We have an opening for a hot dog salesperson.
Do we?
Could use one in the club. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian.
Hello.
We need a hot dog salesman.
Hey, Brian, you'll have to watch the recording. You missed a good one.
I'm sure I did. I apologize. I'm out of town, up in beautiful downtown Quincy.
Quincy, Mass, baby.
Good Rotary Club in Quincy.
All right. Stay in
Very
touch,
good.
everyone.
Thanks. We'll talk offline there, Leslie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie. It was wonderful. Thank
See you
you.
again. Stay safe,
Nice to
everybody.
see
See you next
everybody.
week.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.